Happy Friday. Thank you for joining for another session of Azure Power Lunch. Um, Today, we are going to be talking about Azure App Service networking updates. So basically, there are some exciting things that have been announced in regards to Azure App Service, and we're going to talk about that. Okay. So just want to confirm everybody can hear me, is right? Take it as a yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. So this is a quick blurb about myself, just if you're joining for the first time. Okay, so first of all, app service. If you don't know about app service, this was one of the first service that offered as a part of Azure Cloud, a PaaS service, and allows you to host web apps into the cloud. Um, Folks, if you are not asking a question, if you can mute your phone, that'd be great. And you may know that you can either use the multi-tenant piece where it's running in Microsoft infrastructure. You can host your application on top of it, and that's the multi-tenant app service. And or you can deploy it, inject it into your own virtual network. This is called app service environment. Today, we are going to be specifically talking about app service multi-tenant piece. Okay, we are not going to be talking about app service environment. So that I just want to make it very clear. Okay, so first of all, a quick look at how app service work. So app service has kind of uh, like two major components to it. One is the front end side of it, which is taking the request in, and those requests are first of all checked for metering, for authentication, and like that stuff happens in at the front end, and then those requests are sent back to a worker role. By the way, it is like that's the kind of a two steps that happen, and the worker role is the back end, or the processing side of the things. So when and this concept will be really important to understand when we talk about VNet integration, or when we talk about networking capabilities of app service that are went to GA or just announced in public preview. File servers are there as a part of the kind of a middle tier, you can call it, or supporting cast that hosts data and things like that. But just keep in mind there's a front end which takes requests in, and then there are backends which do the processing, and in that processing they may be calling some third party service databases, whatever it may be. So this is once again a high level overview. If you consider this a black box, you have inbound requests coming in from the internet to the front end, and then there are requests going outbound from the back end. I mean, these requests can be calling like Azure SQL databases, on-prem services, things like that. So this is basically that's how app service is working. So first of all, these are some of the app service features, and as you can see, they are being divided into two parts. On the top, you have the feature which are requesting, which are controlling traffic coming into your app, and the second part of the features which are controlling traffic going out from your app. So that's both the we talked about both the inbound and both the outbound. Okay. So these are basically these are the two things that are there. So as we move further, um, as you can see from the inbound side of things, there's app assigned IP address, there's service endpoint, private link, and from the outbound side of it, there is the gateway integration, regional integration, hybrid connection. Please keep in mind that today we are going to be focusing on from the inbound side, private link, and from the outbound side, gateway VNet integration. These are the two topics that we'll be focusing on. We will talk about because, uh, sorry, regional VNet integration, which is in GA, and it has some capabilities that have been enhanced recently, and the private link, which allows you to access your service over a private IP address. Okay. So, any questions? Okay, so let's quickly move further. First of all, app assigned IP address. So basically, you can assign an IP address. For an inbound traffic to your app, so you can have a dedicated IP address that you can assign to your application. That once again, this is one of the feature of the networking that is available. You can restrict access to your app, so you can say only these IP addresses can access my app. For example, you can block. This is kind of a whitelisting. So if somebody is calling your app over the internet, you can say, okay, only these IP addresses or ranges can call my app. Service endpoint. I just want to briefly go over it just to make sure when we get to the private endpoint, we are very clear what we are trying to do. Service endpoint. This feature was released before private link. What it does is it locks access to a app service based on a subnet. So you can say, this is my VNet, this is a subnet in it, and only apps running or kind of entities running in that subnet can call my app service or web app. Okay. So what that allows you to do is you can run application firewall, web application firewall there, and route all the traffic to the web application firewall, and basically, an app service can only accept traffic from the application firewall from that particular subnet. And that was one of the ways that people try to use app service for private access. So you have a web application firewall, and everybody is accessing that web application firewall in a way where from internal networks, from external networks, like it's an app that is running in that VNet, although the app is external, but all the access to the app is locked except service endpoints. Okay, private link. So as you know, as you may know about private link, it allows you to access your public services, past services that normally are available or public endpoints over private IP addresses in your own VNet. You can have, if you have a third-party service, let's say you develop a web app, you can also expose it as a private link service. You can create your own private link service given that you are using a standard load balancer. Okay, this is private link has gone into GA, and a number of services, Azure services, are being onboarded on that. Okay, so you will see as more and more services, as this private link has gone GA, more and more services are kind of going into public preview with private link support. Okay, one of those service is app service. What it allows you to do is you can have a private IP address for a public, multi-tenant web app. So let's say you create a web app in the cloud, you can have it exposed over a private IP address in a subnet. What advantage does it provide? So if that VNet is connected to on-prem over ExpressRoute or site-to-site VPN, you can access that web service now from on-prem. So you can put simply, if you have intranet application that you are using on-prem, you can now move into multi-tenant app service, and you can expose them over private through private link over, into your VNets and access it from on-prem. So that's kind of opens up more scenarios and help in more with more use cases. Okay. So outbound is hybrid connection. This is a way to access on-prem resources where you run an agent on-prem, which opens an outbound connection and listens to requests coming in. We will talk about it at some point in the future, since it has some extended capabilities that have been announced recently. Okay, this is the one we're going to talk about. This is the regional VNet integration. This VNet integration does not require a gateway. If you remember initially when we started app service VNet integration, where an app service can attach to a VNet. And once again, this is a what we call a backend capability. This is basically when you attach a VNet to an app service. Basically, what you're saying is app service can call into that VNet. That VNet cannot call into the app service. So this is from app to that virtual network. When we announced it a few years back, it required a side-to-side VPN gateway. The big limitation was it did not work with ExpressRoute. But this regional VNet integration, it does not require a gateway. Basically, put simply, you can take a web app and you can attach it to a virtual network. There are a few limitations. First of all, the VNet has to be in the same region as the app itself. The second thing, you the entire subnet is taken by the app service. So no matter how many addresses are there, all of them, I mean, you cannot deploy anything in that subnet. One other thing to keep in mind, if you, it is one app service plan can connect to only one VNet. Okay, so let's say that you have two app service plan and you have one VNet, you cannot connect both to the same virtual network. You have to create another virtual network, do some sort of peering or something, and then you will be able to make this work. Okay. One other thing, you can do route filtering, so you can apply, NSG onto your subnet to lock traffic. So when your app is calling into the VNet, it will obey the NSG rules. Okay. Finally, routing. So it will route. You can route traffic to proxy, to egress firewall, and all. With that, any questions?
Hey, this is Srini here.
Hi, Srini.
So is the whitelisting is good to do in something like Azure front door or at app service level? Is there a best practice that you can think of?
It all depends. If you're just using app service, then you can do it at app service level. If you are using front door with multiple entities sitting behind it, like app services, then of course it makes sense to do it at the front door.
Yeah, the reason why they would use front door is probably they will use multiple services. So
Multiple.
sometimes we want to do it at a backend level for whatever may be a reason. So that's why is it good to do both, or that's why I was asking. So anyway, thanks.
One more question, Len Walker speaking. Let's say if I have two A's and I want to put them to the same VNet but different CIDR block, would that be possible?
I mean, you're talking about ASC?
Yeah, yes.
So by the way, we are talking about, this talk is about app, multi-tenant app service, not ASC. So in terms of ACE, I'm not sure if you can do, I haven't tried an ACE in two ACE in one network. So I don't know what the answer is of that. But as I said, VNet integration for an app service plan. So they can be 10, 20, 30 application in app service plan. They can all connect to the same VNet, but you cannot have two app service plan, apps from two app service plan connecting to the same VNet. Each app service plan will go into a different subnet, a different VNet, I'm sorry. Okay. So here is our demo architecture that I want to show just to kind of convey the point. I have a Windows web app which is running in a Windows app service plan, and a Linux web app which is running in a Linux web app service plan. Okay, I have two virtual networks, as you can see here. They are both connected through VNet peering. I am using a DNS server. Why I'm using a DNS server? Because I have a SQL database and a key vault that Azure SQL DB and Azure Key Vault that I have connected to this particular virtual network through private link. Okay. At this point, just keep in mind, private link, a VNet integration for app service does not support private DNS zone. So let's say if you're trying to access private IP addresses over, so let's say you have an app that is connected to a VNet where you have a private endpoint that you created for Azure SQL, it won't be able to access that. You have to bring in your own DNS server, okay, to make, to enable that DNS translation. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. For example, I'm also using a ADO self-host agents just to show how you can push code into your web app. Since this web app, as you can see, has a private link front end, it cannot be accessed from the cloud. So the only way to access it from that particular VNet, from a VNet where that private endpoint is accessible. Okay. So let's create a new web app and let's see the experience of creating the private endpoint, and we go from there. Okay. So let's create a web app, and I'm just gonna use the resource group already. I'm gonna select a .NET stack. Just for the sake of simplicity, I am going to use East US. By the way, private preview for public preview for private link for app service is only available in East US and West US too. Okay. So let's create that. Nope. And I'm just gonna do a review create. Sorry, I think I missed something. Oh yeah. Okay, so I'm just creating an app. Just keep in mind, this app is not running on a ACE app service environment. It is running in the multi-tenant environment in Azure. So just keep that in mind. It will take a few seconds since app service plan has already been created. It's just putting that app service on that app service plan. If you don't know about an app service plan is, think of it as a web server farm on which you host all apps are hosted on that infrastructure behind the scene. We manage and maintain that infrastructure, provide updates to it, and all that, so you don't have to worry about it. And you can set up auto scaling and things like that to scale up and scale down the infrastructure. Okay. So while this is running, let me do a refresh. Whenever there is a demo, it always takes more time. I'm not sure why. Okay, so let me just go in here. And let me go with an existing app service, and we can go from there. Let's see, it's still running. So let's go in here. There is an app service. Let's see. Okay, it's done. So this is an app service. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to show how we can create a private endpoint. So if I do browse of this app service, it takes me here. So its app service is there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to its management endpoint, which is advanced tools. And I am going to add a simple index.html page to it. So there we go. And I am going to add a new file, index.html. And in that file, I'm just going to put one tag. Okay, save it. And if I try to access this site again, sorry, this is not the one. Let me go up here. I just wanted to have something in the site so you can see what's going on. Okay, so what I'm going to do is now I am going to create a private endpoint for it. So if we go into the networking tab, you will see here private endpoint preview. Okay, and in order to create a private endpoint, you go in here, you give it a name. So I'm going to name it VE. You will pick a virtual network. I'm going to pick this app VNet. This is a virtual network that I have created in Azure, and I'm going to pick a subnet. So you have to assign a VNet and a subnet. Once you do that, it will take a second or two to create that particular, private endpoint. And once, just keep in mind that once an app is has a private endpoint. So let me show you an app that has a private endpoint. Let's go in here. So this is a simple Spring app that I have created. And if you can see here, it has a private endpoint. See that? This is the private endpoint. And look, this is a 10.4, 10 dot address, which is a RFC address. This is mostly, related to private subnets. So this is a private endpoint that I have created in a subnet. So if I try to access this app, so let's say if I go in and try to browse it, it gives me 403 forbidden. So at this point, all access to this app over the private or the public IP is blocked. The only way I can access it if I go into this VM. So I have this VM here, and let me just close this. And this is a virtual machine that is running in the same subnet. And let me show you. I think I should be able to show you here. If we look at, so this is a virtual machine that is running in the same subnet as, in the same VNet as the private endpoint. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I am gonna try to open this here, and I'm gonna type it. This is the site that showed up. So the point is, you have a web app, you connected it, you expose it over private IP address. All of his public access is now blocked. You can only access it over that private endpoint. One other thing I want to show you, look at my DNS. For simplicity, I just created a Windows server, put domain services on it. I have this zone, Azure Websites.net, and look, this is the A record I have for my website. And then I have an A record for the SCM site as well. Just keep in mind, any site that you do, you have to either do a DNS record or etc host file. Otherwise, you will not. etc host file is you're just experimenting. DNS record if you are going into production. So let's say if you're a customer, or if you are an organization that's looking at private link for app service, and you create these sites, you have to create the DNS entries for them to be able to access them in your organization, in your intranet. Okay. Any questions?
Hey, Navid, I'm assuming that this should work just fine from any place where they can access this private IP address, including on-prem for Express.
That is exactly right. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So do you know any chance when they are going to make it GA, especially East
I
US?
don't know, man.
You don't know.
I have
Okay.
no idea.
Yeah, no, I
So,
think my customer also wants it in Azure government the moment I tell them. So that's a different story.
oh yeah, that will be a bit later, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So the second thing is, so as you can see here, this is the app that we created before. It has already also created a IP private endpoint. So what we're gonna do is we are gonna look at the experience of VNet integration. I'm sure you are aware of it, but I just want to show it to you. Go into VNet integration, you say add VNet, and you will pick one of the VNets. And as you can see, it shows you the VNet which is empty, because if any other VNet has any resources in it, you cannot pick it for VNet integration. So I already have this VNet. I can say OK, and it will attach it to this virtual network. Okay. Finally, so I have, as I said in this demo, I have an app that is connecting to Azure SQL DB. Its connection string is stored in Key Vault. It is using managed identity to get that from the Key Vault. Then it's accessing database from SQL DB using the connection string that it retrieved. So it's end-to-end scenario. Think of it. This scenario is depicted here. You see, I am accessing this app. It's connected to the VNet front end through private link, back end through VNet integration. So basically, it appears to me as an internal application, as an intranet application. So I just want to show it to you here. This is the app. Yeah. Yes, exactly. So let's go back here. So this is the app that I wanted to show you. If we go to home, the contact information here, it's coming from a Azure SQL database. So the point of saying is you can create a complete intranet only app using private link and VNet integration. I know we are kind of a bit right at the time. Any questions before we move any further?
Hey, Naveen, are you able to share the lab with us, the architecture and the lab you demo?
Yeah, I can definitely share the the slide deck. It's not a lab, to be honest. I'm just following the quick starts from both sides, from the VNet side and from the yeah. So there's no, I'm not kind of contributing anything there. And by the way, the links to all of that is in here. Okay. So you can
Okay.
use that. And if reach out to me if you have any issues. That's
Thanks
Do you
for sharing.
post
It's
these
great.
decks anymore, Naveed?
Sorry, say it again.
Do you post the decks, these
Yeah.
presentations? Okay.
These decks will be posted. So if you go to the website, azurepowerlunch.com, you should have a link there. Otherwise, if you go to the YouTube channel, in the description, that link is there. So you have multiple ways to get that. Yeah, the PDF will be
Thank you.
posted. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, just to clarify, you can connect two app service plans to the same VNet so long as they have their own subnet.
No, it's one-to-one. So app service plan 1 can only connect to VNet 1. So doesn't matter. I mean, you might have, if you try to do multiple subnet, it doesn't work. I'm not sure why, but that's the thing. It's a correlation is not subnet, it's VNet to the service plan.
Well, it's that restriction isn't being enforced then because I can do it. And if you look at our documentation, it specifically says you can connect two different app service plans to the same VNet.
That's
So
interesting.
yeah, it should work. I just set this up for a customer yesterday.
Okay, that's good. I mean, because as far as I know, that's a news to me. So yeah, give it a shot because I tried to do it just before this demo, and for me it says you are exceeding the limit for a particular VNet. So that's where it kind of caused the problem. So yeah, I mean, if you can, then give it a try. And but as far as I know, I mean, I got the specific error that only it's one VNet per one service plan per VNet. So I will definitely look at it again and I will post it on that. So okay. Anything else, guys? Okay, thank you very much. And have a excellent weekend and hope to see everyone next week for another session of Azure Power Lunch.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.